So alhamdulillah, just to refresh our memories what we are up to. Of course, our overall theme has been belief, aqidah, and we've talked about belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, belief in belief in the angels, and we've reached the belief in the messengers. And once we reach the iman bil rusul, we've decided to discuss the lives of the rusul as well, instead of just speaking in an overview of their belief. So alhamdulillah, we've covered many of the anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam, and we've reached to the story of Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. And we've tried our best to go in a chronological order. So because of that, we've covered many of the anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam. The prophets that have passed, we can try and assume that they came before Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. Of course, since we started Musa alayhi salatu wassalam a couple of weeks ago, let's just try and refresh where we are at. We took very briefly about the life of Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, just the beginning. So just to refresh your memory, we mentioned that our Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, firstly, he is one of the greatest of the prophets that we have. In fact, he's amongst the ulul azm, as they call it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells our Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, fasbir, and he tells us as well, fasbir, have patience, kama sabara ulul azm, the way the ulul azm that had patience. Now, who are the ulul azm from the anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam? We mentioned they are five. There are five. First being Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, secondly being Ibrahim, then Musa, Isa, and our Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and alayhi salatu wasalam jami'an. So this is the rank of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is one of the prophets that is mentioned throughout the Quran in abundance. His story is mentioned throughout the Quran in many, many places. So we mentioned that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was born at a time where Egypt was being ruled by Fir'aun. And Fir'aun, he was ruling over the people, and he used to have under him a group of people called Banu Israel. So we had the Egyptians, and we also had Banu Israel. Banu Israel were descendants of Aqib alayhi salatu wasalam. We had Yaqub, Yusuf, and his other brothers, and from them on, they are called the Banu Israel, the children of Israel. As we mentioned, Israel was the name of Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam. So they were also living in Egypt at that time while Fir'aun was in control. And it's mentioned that Fir'aun used to oppress them. Fir'aun used to use them for low-paying labor jobs and even slavery. And there was a prophecy going on amongst the Banu Israel that we can assume came down from their prophets, since they had many prophets, including Yusuf, that a person will come from the Banu Israel and he will take down a tyrant from Egypt. He will take down a tyrant of Egypt. When Fir'aun heard this, he himself knew that he was a tyrant. Of course, he knew what he was doing. So once he realized this, he realized that somebody will come from Banu Israel to take him down. As soon as he heard this prophecy, he decided to come up with a plan. He wanted to be, we can say, proactive. So he came up with a law that every male child born in Banu Israel would be killed immediately. So this was a very systematic killing. He sent out police throughout the city, and anytime they saw a woman that was pregnant from the Banu Israel, the police used to keep tabs on her. The police used to watch her. And as soon as she gave birth, they used to come in and see, was it a boy or was it a girl? If it was a girl, they would let her live, and if it was a boy, they would take that boy and they would kill that boy. That was their systematic way of killing them. Now what happens? The scholars mention that this happened over a long period of time. Now when you do this for a long period of time, it ends up hurting your economy, because you're basically cutting up your workforce. You're killing all the male child. So what happened was his advisors, they advised him. They said that, oh Fir'aun, instead of killing all the boys, why don't you change up your policy a little bit, loosen up a little bit. So what was this loosening up? They said that, why don't you let the boys live 1 year, meaning any boy that is born 1 year, let him live, and then the next year kill him, meaning kill them every other year, alternatively. So what Fir'aun did was he took that law into consideration. So 1 year he would let all the boys survive, and the next year he used to kill any boys born. So through this we learned that Harun, the brother of Musa, was born in a year where the boys were allowed to live, while Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was born in a year where boys were meant to be killed. So that is why when the mother of Musa was giving birth to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, she became increasingly worried and anxious. And that is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed his miracles upon her. And we've mentioned that her pregnancy was even concealed from the police. The police that used to walk around inspecting, they couldn't even detect that she was pregnant through the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And eventually what happened was, when she gave birth, that's when she became increasingly worried, because at some point the police are going to realize that there's a baby inside the house, and they will come and check, is this baby a boy or a girl? So because of this, she became more and more worried until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed down to her that what? Put your boy inside a box, put him in the Nile River and let him go, and don't worry, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reunite you with him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make him from the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. So she followed with the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and she sent Musa alayhi salatu wasalam in the box. Now we mentioned that Fir'aun had many palaces, and a lot of his palaces was by the streams, by the rivers, and he used to like to show off and boast that, look, I have these rivers under my control, I have the land under my control, I have this and that. So it happened to be that he was sitting in one of his palaces by the river when that box started going by. So when that box started going by, the servants of Fir'aun, they saw it's a giant box. They went after it, they said, let's see what this box is. They took that box, they opened it up, and what did they see inside? They see a boy, a living boy inside there. So as soon as they said that, Fir'aun automatically realized that this was an Israeli, just by his facial features and characteristics, and said, kill him. He told his soldiers, go kill this boy. At this point, the wife of Fir'aun, Asiya, who was one of the greatest women in Islam, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, women that perfected Iman. These four women he mentioned was Asiya firstly. He also mentioned mother. He mentioned Khadija, the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he also mentioned our mother Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. So he mentioned these four women. Asiya is one of the greatest women in Islam that we have. So what she did was she pleaded with Fir'aun, let the boy live, let the boy live. Maybe we can adopt him as a son, he could be a servant for us, he could be useful for us, let him live. So Fir'aun said, okay, fine, there's one exception, let's just let this boy live. Now of course this was the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After Fir'aun accepted this child, we mentioned that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam would not accept any other woman to breastfeed. He just wouldn't take it. He would cry and cry and cry until it became to a point where it became unbearable to Fir'aun. And he said, go out, look in the city, bring anyone that can breastfeed this child. So they went out looking and looking. Meanwhile, the mother of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, she sent her daughter looking out for Musa, because she knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect the child. So she said, go out into the city and look for signs of your brother, my son. And then when she heard that there was this child that would not accept anybody, she immediately realized that this was Musa. She went to the palace. She told the palace guards that, oh people, I'll give you someone that this baby will accept. Just give me one chance. So they were desperate. They said, okay, go bring this person. So who did she end up bringing? She ended up bringing her mother, the mother of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And like this, the child and the mother, Musa and his mother, was reunited the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised her. The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised her. And we mentioned that not only were they reunited, when Fir'aun saw that Musa was the only one, or she was the only one that Musa would accept, he actually offered her to stay inside the palace. He said, just stay inside the palace full time, you'll be the one taking care of this child. So she said that, no, I have an entire family back home, so let me go home and send Musa with me. So what did Fir'aun do? Fir'aun let her take Musa to her house, and in the meantime he funded her. So basically he ended up paying up for his upbringing, and that's how she was reunited with her son, and that's how Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was brought up. Eventually, after the weaning period, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was returned back to the palace, and that's where we left off. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam grew up in the palace for quite some time, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us. He says in Surah Al-Qasas, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. When Musa reached maturity, وَاسْتَوَى, and he became full in age, آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. We gave him wisdom and knowledge. Now many of the scholars say that this age was 40 years old, around 40 years old. Why do they say that? There's actually another ayah in the Quran in Surah Al-Aqib, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ. We command people to be grateful to their parents and to be obedient to their parents. Why? حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ. The child's mother carried him كُرْهًا وَوَضَعَتْهُ كُرْهًا. The mother carried the child out of pain and hardship, and delivered the child out of pain and hardship. وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ 30 شهرًا. This whole period of carrying the child and delivering the child and breastfeeding the child, everything combined, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, is roughly 30 شهرًا, 30 months. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, until this child what? حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ. When he reaches maturity, what age did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? وَبَلَغَ 40 سَنَةً. He reaches 40 years of age. That's why many of the scholars say that Musa was 40 years old. And it seems consistent or somewhat consistent with the other Anbiya when they also received prophethood. As we know, our Prophet ﷺ received revelation as well at 40. So this is what is mentioned here, that when he reached 40 years old, approximately, we can say, give or take, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says he gave him wisdom and he gave him knowledge. Now, he grew up in the palace of Fir'aun, so he is known as, the Israeli that grew up in the palace of Fir'aun. And next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about the next incident that took place. And that is the incident that once when he was walking in the marketplace, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَدَخَلَ الْمَدِينَةَ عَلَى حِينِ غَفْلَةٍ مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا فَوَجَدَ فِيهَا رَجُلَيْنِ يَقْتَتِلَانِ. So he was walking in the city one day, in the marketplace, and he saw two people يَقْتَتِلَانِ, fighting. هَذَا مِنْ شِيعَتِهِ. One of them was from his own people, meaning one of them was an Israeli just like Musa. وَهَذَا مِنْ عَدُوِّ. The other one was his enemy, meaning he was an Israeli, he was an Egyptian Coptic person. So they were both fighting each other. When the Israeli saw Musa, he knew him to be his own. He immediately called Musa. He said, "Oh Musa, come help me. Come help me, you're one of my own." Killed a man. So that is one opinion. Another opinion, another group of scholars, they say no, the person that said that was actually the Egyptian himself, this new Egyptian Coptic, which means the word that Musa killed a man already had gotten out and people already knew about it. And this is a pretty, something we can, imagine, because if Musa killed a man in a marketplace, it's not far-fetched that the word would already spread around the town and everyone knows about it. So this Egyptian Coptic, when he saw that he's coming, taking a step towards him, he immediately said, "Oh Musa, you're coming to kill me the way you killed another Egyptian yesterday?" So as soon as he said that out loud, now more and more people know. And what was just a rumor originally now became true. As soon as Musa heard this, he immediately stopped. And he became extremely worried. When he became extremely worried, it is mentioned that a man came running from the far parts of the town. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us again in Surah Al-Qasas, this incident can be found in Surah Al-Qasas, not too far from the beginning. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَجَاءَ رَجُلٌ مِنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ يَسْعَى. That a man came running from the farthest part of the city. And he said, "Ya Musa, inna al-mala'a ya'tamirun." "Oh Musa, do you not know the people have gathered in the palace and they're discussing amongst themselves what to do with you. And they've decided that they want to kill you. And I'm coming to you as a well-wisher. I'm coming to give you advice." So basically he's telling him that, Musa, you're going to have to leave or you're going to get killed here. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, when he heard this, it became confirmed in Musa's heart that the news had spread to Fir'aun, and Fir'aun would already wanted to kill this man anyways. He wanted to kill Musa والسلام, from the very beginning. The only reason he let him live was because of the wife of Fir'aun, because of his wife pleaded with him. So now he found an excuse to finally get rid of this man. So he was going to kill him immediately. So as soon as Musa heard this, he decided to leave the city. He didn't even go back to the palace. He just left, and he went towards Madian. So you can imagine that Musa والسلام, at this point, he has no, he's not packing anything. He didn't bring with him luggage. There's no clothes, just him and his clothes, and he just went off running. He went off running. Where is he going running? He had no idea. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says he went off completely blind, no idea where he was going. And he said, Asa Rabbi ayahdiyani sawa as-sabil, that perhaps my Lord will guide me to the right way. My Lord will take me somewhere where I'll be safe. So as he went down this path, he eventually reached Madian, the place of Madian. And if you remember, Madian was the same place where the Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salatu wassalam was sent down. And we've actually mentioned this, if you remember, that some ulama, they actually said that Shu'aib was actually, what we're about to discuss, that he was actually the person Musa is going to encounter right now. And we mentioned that other ulama, like Ibn Kathir and others, says that no, Shu'aib was actually during the time of the Prophet Lut, or shortly after the time of Prophet Lut, as mentioned in the Quran, or seemingly mentioned in the Quran. And this is another man. This is another man, and this is just the same city, Madian. It's just the same city called Madian. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam goes to Madian, the city where Shu'aib was sent down many, many years ago. When he went there, he came across a scene. What was the scene that he came across? He saw a group of men with their sheep, with their flocks of sheep. They were by a well, and they were drawing out water for their sheep, so their sheep can get water. And then he noticed on the side, two women away from the crowd with their own sheep, with their own flock. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us this, that وَوَجَدَ مِن دُونِهِمْ امْرَأَتَيْنِ تَذُودَانِ. These two women, they were keeping the sheep to themselves, and they were just standing there. So this was an odd sight. So he went up to the woman and he said that, قَالَ مَا خَطْبُكُمَا. What's your affair? Why are you just standing on this corner over here? What are you doing? They responded that, قَالَتَا لَا نَسْقِي حَتَّى يُسْدِرَ الرِّعَاء. We do not go and feed or give water to our sheep until the men are finished. Because this was at that time a job for only men, because it required strength, and it also required mixing in with the other men together, right? So they wanted to protect themselves and not intermingle with the men, and they wanted to stay and maintain their shyness. So they wanted to wait till the men were done, then they would go and they would give water to the sheep. When Musa alayhi salatu wasalam saw this, he decided to help them out. Now the narrations mention, as Ibn Kathir says, that when the men used to finish, they used to cover up the well with a large rock. They used to cover up the well with a large rock to protect the well from birds dropping stuff inside, or animals pooping inside, or any of these type of things, right? They used to cover it up. So this required immense strength, and usually 10 men used to be required just to lift this rock up, and then they used to give water to the sheep. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu actually is narrated on him that he said that this rock was so heavy that 10 men needed to pick it up. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, when the men left, he himself went by himself and he picked up this rock by himself, removed the rock, and he gave the water to the women so they can feed their sheep. When the women saw this, they were impressed obviously, and they went back home with their sheep. And their father noticed that they came home earlier than usual. Of course, when they were by themselves, it takes them a long time to slowly lift up the rock, give water to the sheep. The father saw that they came home earlier than usual. So the father said that, what happened? Why are you home so early? Did you actually give water to your sheep? So they said, yes, we were assisted by a man. So the father asked them to describe the man. They described the man, and the father was, again, extremely impressed with the behavior of this man. And we can assume by this that it was unfortunately a bad behavior of the people at the time, that even though that there were women standing on the side, they didn't used to go out of their way and try to help these women. They didn't really care. They were just looking out for themselves. They would give water to their sheep, and then they would just go away and walk away. And this is actually one of the reasons, if you remember, that we mentioned that people say that this could not be the people of Shu'aib. This could not be the people of Shu'aib, because if it was the people of Shu'aib, after the punishment, they became believers. The ones that were punished, they went away, and the ones that remained were actually believers. And they say it's impossible for believers to have this sort of characteristic, where they will stand around and feed their own sheep while two women are standing there by themselves. They said this is not a characteristic that's plausible for a believer to have. especially the believers of Prophet Shu'aib who was already amongst them. So, as soon as the woman said this, the father told the woman that go get this man that you described to me, bring him to me, I want to give him some reward. So the woman, they went back to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. It's mentioned that after Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, after he did this action, he went under a tree and he started making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as mentioned in the Quran where he said, Rabbi inni lima anzalti ilayya min khayrin faqir. Oh my Lord, I am in need of whatever good you can give me. Oh my Lord, I'm in need of whatever good you can give me, please give me something. So he's making dua on one end. On the other end, the father tells the woman, go bring that man. Go bring that man to me. So the woman, they came up to him and they said that, oh, our father is calling you and he wants to give you some sort of reward for what you've done. He wants to give you some sort of reward. So when he comes, the father saw Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. You could imagine that he's traveled such a long journey. His clothes were messed up, he was tattered, he was dirty. He looked like he hadn't eaten in a long time. The father immediately said that this is not a normal situation. He said, what happened to you? So he said that I used to live in the palace of Fir'aun, and he told him the entire story. That obviously Midian was not under the rule of Fir'aun. So when the father heard this story, he said, don't worry, نَجَوْتَ مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. You have been saved from the oppressed people. You have been saved from the people that are oppressive. So at that point, when Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was in conversation with this man, one of the daughters, they came up to the father and they said, Ya abati istajirhu. Oh my dear father, istajirhu. Employ him. Let him work under you. Inna khayra man istajarta al-qawiy al-amin. Very the best people that you can employ are the ones that are qawi, they are strong, and amin, they're trustworthy. Now, the ulama mentioned that them asking their father to employ Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was also an indirect hint that one of us should get married to him as well. One of us should get married to him as well. So the one that said this was actually hinting to the father, employ him and also let us get married to him, or let me get married to him. It was one of them. So the ulama also, they went into the tafsir of this ayah. They said that when she said that he is qawi and amin, he is strong and trustworthy, how is he strong? They said that he was strong because he was able to lift the rock that 10 people needed to lift off. He lifted it by himself. So that shows he is qawi. And they said, how is he amin? And this is something interesting. They said that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was so trustworthy that when the woman came to him and they said, we'll take you to our father, he refused to walk behind them. Why? He refused to walk behind them so his gaze wouldn't fall on their backs. His gaze wouldn't fall on their backs. So what did he do? He made sure he stood in front of them and they directed him from the back, meaning go right, go left, whatever. So he made sure he wasn't behind them, and that shows he was extremely trustworthy and he wasn't out there to take advantage of anyone. He wasn't out there to take advantage of anyone. He went in front of them to make sure his gaze wouldn't fall on their backs. And this is mentioned by the scholars of tafsir. So because of this, the father now said that, إِنِّي أُرِيدُ أَنْ أُنْكِحَكَ إِحْدَى ابْنَتَيَّ هَاتَيْنِ. Oh Musa, I want you to marry one of my daughters. عَلَىٰ أَن تَأْجُرَنِي ثَمَانِيَ حِجَجٍ. But he knows that Musa has no money. He just came as a refugee, running away from being oppressed. So he says that you don't have to give anything in return, but one thing. عَلَىٰ أَن تَأْجُرَنِي. I will employ you ثَمَانِيَ حِجَجٍ for 8 years. 8 years you'll work under me, and after 8 years you can have one of my daughters. And then he says, if you can make it 10 years, that's from you. If you can make it 10 years from you, so there's no hardship on you, at least 8 years you give me and I will marry you off to one of my daughters. سَتَجِدُنِي إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. You'll find me that I'm from the righteous people. I'm not here to make it a hardship upon you. So the ulama mentioned that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam agreed, as he said, قَالَ ذَلِكَ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكَ. This contract is between me and you. أَيَّمَا الْأَجَلَيْنِ قَضَيْتَ. Whichever one of the two options I choose, whether the 8 years or the 10 years, فَلَا عُدْوَانَ عَلَيْهِ. There will be no animosity between you and me. وَاللَّهُ عَلَى مَا نَقُولُ وَكِيلٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching over everything we're saying, and this is the contract. So based on this, the scholars say that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam got married to one of the daughters, and he worked for the father for the full term of 10 years. He worked under the father for the full term of 10 years. After working for the father for the full time of 10 years, also, what did he work as? The scholars mentioned that he worked as a shepherd. He used to watch over the sheep. He used to make sure that, what shepherds do, he was making sure, watching over the flock. And the ulama mentioned that this is one of the characteristics of the prophets. Many of the prophets of sheep, we see that they were actually shepherds. Why? It teaches them patience. It teaches them how to deal with, sheep wandering off and all the other things that go with that. So after that, in his final year, is mentioned that they say that as a reward for his hard work that he completed the full 10 years, the father decided to reward him. So he said that there's a special color of sheep that next year, any sheep that has this color, I will give it to you. Now this sheep, this color was very rare, so maybe he was assuming that it wouldn't be that many. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, and somehow, by the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those sheep that had that color became abundant, and Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he came as a poor man with nothing, and he's going back married, and a modest amount of wealth, So now it's time for him to leave. And now he's heading back towards where his home is, because he misses his family, of course. Now you have to realize that he's going back as a refugee. He's going back with no home, no place back there, and people are after him. So of course he's a little bit worried. As he's walking, it's mentioned that because of the anxiety, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam lost his way on the road. He's in the middle of the desert and he completely lost his way. Now, it happened to be in the nighttime, and this entire ordeal is mentioned in Surah Taha. So what we mentioned earlier about the birth of Musa and the mother of Musa and the killing of the man in the marketplace, that was mentioned in Surah Al-Qasas. Now we're moving to Surah Taha. Everything that we're going to talk about here is mentioned in Surah Taha. So as he was walking in the desert, he lost his way. In the distance, he saw fire. He saw a big light. So he told his people, "Umkuthu inni anastu nara." Oh, my family, stay put here. I see a fire. لَعَلِّي آتِيكُم مِّنْهَا بِخَبَرٍ. Maybe someone lit a fire there so I can go to him and I can get the directions of which way we can go. أَوْ أَجِدُ عَلَى النَّارِ هُدًى. Or I can find some sort of guidance from the fire. You stay here, let me go check it out, let me investigate. So as soon as he goes there, what happened? He approached the light and he saw a bush over there, and that bush was burning. It was burning, and it was said that it was an unusual fire, an extremely large fire, and it's a strange place for a fire to be. So he became curious and he kept going towards the fire, and without realizing it, he stepped into the valley of Tuwa, which was under the Mount of Tur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at this point immediately revealed wahi, and this is from the specialties of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, that an angel didn't come down. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself directly, in a manner that is appropriate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, spoke directly to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran in Surah Al-Nisa, وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to Musa taklima, to emphasize that yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. The how of it, as we mentioned, we do not know exactly how. This only belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. But we know for sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke directly to Musa, and this is from the specialties of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell him? The entire dialogue is mentioned in Surah Taha. And we'll mention it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, first thing, Inni ana rabbuka fakhla'na alayk. O Musa, I am your Rabb, I am your Lord. Fakhla'na alayk. Take off your slippers, take off your sandals. Innaka bilwadi al-muqaddasi Tuwa. Verily you have entered the holy valley of Tuwa. Wa ana akhtartuka. And I have chosen you. Fastami' lima yuha. So listen to what is being revealed right now. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is in shock. So he's standing there and he's following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command. He took off his sandals and now he's listening. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now tells him what is being revealed. He says, Innani ana Allah. Verily I am Allah. La ilaha illa ana fa'budni. There is no other deity that belongs to worship except for me. Fa'budni. So make sure you worship me. Wa aqimis salata li dhikri. And establish salah for my remembrance. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna sa'ata atiyah. Verily the hour is coming. The last day is coming. Akadu ukhfiha, and I hide it from the people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him why he hides the hour from the people. He says, لِتُجْزَى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا تَسْعَى. So I can reward the people for what they do. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the hikmah from him, making the hour hidden from us. Because if people knew when the day of judgment was coming, what do you imagine would happen? People wait until the end of time. The people around the end of time, they'll have it good. They know the day of judgment is coming next year. Alhamdulillah, they'll all do tawbah and start worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, I'm hiding this from you, لِتُجْزَى, so I can really test people and then reward them for what they actually do. فَلَا يَصُدَّنَّكَ عَنْهَا. Don't let the people that follow their desires deceive you and prevent you from worshiping me. فَتَرْدَى. Then you will be destroyed. You will be destroyed. So this was the initial conversation Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, he shifts the conversation now towards the staff of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. He says, O Musa, وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا Musa. O Musa, what is in your hand? What is in your right hand? So Musa, his first response to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The whole time he was quiet, we can assume that, the Lord of the universe is speaking to him, he's in shock. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks him a question, what is in your right hand, O Musa? Musa alayhi salatu wasalam says, Hiya asai. This is my staff, this is my stick. Atawakka'u alayha. I lean on it. وَأَهَوْشُ بِهَا عَلَى غَنَمٍ وَأَهَوْشُ بِهَا عَلَى غَنَمٍ, meaning that I take down leaves for my sheep. وَلِيَ فِيهَا مَآرِبُ أُخْرَى. And I have many other actions I can do with this stick. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, أَلْقِهَا يَا Musa. O Musa, throw it on the floor. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, Rabb, so he throws a stick on the floor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِذَا هِيَ حَيَّةٌ تَسْعَى. As soon as he threw it on the floor, that stick immediately transformed into a serpent and it started moving around in front of him. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam jumped back and he became extremely afraid. He saw, moving serpent in front of him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, خُذْهَا. Go take it. وَلَا تَخَفْ. Do not be afraid. سَنُعِيدُهَا سِيرَتَهَا الْأُولَى. We will transform it back the way it was, meaning it will turn back to a stick. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now, this is the first command he's telling him to physically do. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he grabbed that serpent. As soon as he grabbed it, it turned back to his stick. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continued. He said, أُضْمُمْ يَدَكَ إِلَى جَنَاحِكَ. Take your hand and put it under your arm. So what did Musa alayhi salatu wasalam do? He took his right hand and he put it under his left arm over here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تَخْرُجْ بَيْضَاء مِنْ غَيْرِ سُوءٍ. It will come out shining white without anything on it. And some of the scholars, they mentioned that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam had some skin diseases that when he used to put it there, it came out healed. But most of the ulama say that it was just a sign that he would put his arm over here and it would come out bright white shining. So when he did that, he saw it right in front of him, his hand was shining bright white as a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِنُرِيَكَ مِنْ آيَاتِنَا الْكُبْرَى. If you think these are signs, the bigger signs are going to even come later on. So once he said that to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him about his mission. He says, O Musa, اذهب إلى فرعون. Musa, go to Fir'aun, إنه طغى. Verily he has transgressed. Now when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said this is when Musa alayhi salatu wasalam now turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and makes dua. Now Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, as you mentioned last time, that he had a speech impediment, he had a hard time speaking, he used to stutter a lot. So at this point he said that, Oh my Rabb, this is a large mission for him. He said, Rabbi shrah li sadri, the famous dua that we know. Oh Allah, open up my chest. Ishrah li sadri, wa yassir li amri, and make my affair easy for me. Wahlul uqdatan min lisani, and open up this knot on my tongue. Open up this knot on my tongue. Yafqahu qawli, why? So the people can understand me. Waj'al li waziran min ahli, and make someone from my family an assistant for me. Who? Harun akhi, my brother Harun, make him my assistant. Ushdud bihi azri, and use him to strengthen me. Wa ashrikhu fi amri, and make him be part of my command. Now, interestingly enough, the scholars of Islam, they say that this is the greatest intercession that can ever take place in the dunya. In the dunya, of course, in the akhirah is something else. Because, we have intermediaries all the time. Someone goes and speaks good for you for maybe a job interview. You know someone that works at a job place, that person talks good about you. So you get a referral, right? Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly that makes someone a prophet. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes that person a prophet. That's the greatest intercession that could ever take place in the dunya. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted this statement from him. And Musa alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned that, join him with me. Why? كَيْ نُسَبِّحَكَ كَثِيرًا. So we can do tasbih of you. So we can glorify you. وَنَذْكُرَكَ كَثِيرًا. And we can remember you most. إِنَّكَ كُنْتَ بِنَا بَصِيرًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately responded by saying, قَالَ قَدْ أُوتِيتَ سُؤْلَكَ يَا مُوسَى. O Musa, whatever you have asked, we have given it to you. It is done. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues the conversation, and this is the last part. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَيْكَ مَرَّةً أُخْرَى. That, O Musa, we have given you this as a ni'mah on top of all the ni'am that we have given you before. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him the life story that he went through. The life story that he went through. And again, this is mentioned in Surah Taha, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him that, Musa, when you were a child, what happened? We told your mother to put you in a box. And the box went to Fir'aun. And Fir'aun took you, and we saved your life like this. So this is all the blessings we have given you. So directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he knew his own life story. He knew his own life story. After telling him all of this, he says that again, اِذْهَبَا إِلَى فِرْعَوْنَ إِنَّهُ طَغَى. Go to Fir'aun. verily he has transgressed. Verily he has transgressed. Inshallah, we'll leave it off here. Next week we'll continue where Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he joins his brother Harun and they go towards the palace of Fir'aun. He goes towards the palace of Fir'aun. If there's any questions, if not, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika.